So another month has rolled around, and that does mean that it's time for another reptile room tour. In today's video I'm going to be showing you all of the reptiles that are currently in my collection, including Char the Beardy here, as well as all my other reptiles, and I'll be updating you as to how they've been doing over the past month. Now, since last time we have got some new additions, which is really exciting, so I'll be talking about those, as well as things I've got planned in the future, so let's crack on with it. So in today's reptile room tour we are going to be starting off by looking at the thing that has changed the most since last time, and that is the tropical vivarium. So in the last reptile room tour this was actually devoid of any sort of proper vertebrate inhabitants, and it isn't anymore. In last week's video, if you watched it, you'll remember that I did unbox a 1.1 pair of Phelsuma lineata. Right now you are looking at the male of the pair, and up here, just peeping over the top of the bromeliad, is the female. Now, if you did watch last week's video, which I'll throw up a little link to in the top right hand corner of the screen right now, you will remember that they had been fighting a bit, so the male had been really picking on the female, who's coming down here now, but you will see that when they interact, the fighting has really stopped between them now. The hierarchy has settled out. The male is really clearly in charge. You can see him there that he is significantly larger than the female. Although the pair of them are tiny, and they do this like crawling over each other. But there is quite a lot of news with these, even though it's only been a week since I last talked about them. So the female, who still doesn't have a name, and the male doesn't either, but the female this morning has been really quite subdued. I've just been on a walk and came back, and she's out and about, which is good. But she had been hiding up under the runners for the glass all morning, like right under this black bar here. And I was still a little bit worried about her this morning, and I did take a photo that I'll throw up on the screen now. And I actually think that she's gravid already. Whether this is because she's mated since I've had her, I very much doubt, because the eggs look quite well developed already, and I've not had them a fortnight, so I do very much doubt that they've mated in the time that I've had them, but either way, it is exciting to see, and I'll be doing more updates on that in the future. So as well with these two, I have actually changed up the heating and lighting a bit, because it wasn't really getting warm enough for them. I did have a T8 7% Arcadia bulb running along the top, and that didn't give me much space because obviously this enclosure from DMS Vivaria isn't the widest. And so when I wanted to put a heat bulb up there, I didn't have space. So I made a bit of an upgrade to a Pro T5 Arcadia Shade Dweller unit. And then I do have a 25 watt Zoom Ed daylight blue bulb for a bit of heat there. And it is getting much hotter up in the basking zone now, getting about 30 in the hottest spots. And you can see that that really is making the colours pop on these two. But that is that little change. Of course, I did go on at length about these in last week's video, so if you want to see more about them, then do feel free to check that out. But for now, that is it for the line day geckos, who are still waiting for names again, so if you've got any, please give me them. But that is it for now on them, and let's move on to Splat the crested gecko. Perhaps the biggest difference in these two Vivaria, apart from the fact like the different sizes and different makes and stuff, is the fact that Splat the crested gecko's tank looks so much darker than the line day gecko enclosure, even though up on the top here there is a greater wattage of lighting equipment than there is over here. And so I do have plans to sort of overhaul the heating and lighting on this, get some T5 UVB bulbs, get a stronger plant growth lamp, and also get an Arcadia deep heat projector for the heating, which that won't give out any light, but either way it should hopefully look a bit brighter, and the plants at the bottom, like this Wandering Jew, will do a bit better. But anyway, on to Splat the Cresty himself. So if we go into his vid here, I will show you his food dish. You can see that he's eating really well. That is on Arcadia Sticky Foot Gold in there. Bromeliads here, blushing decently well under the Arcadia Jungle Dawn, but I think if I got some of those skylight lights on here, they could really pop. So I will look into doing that. And then here the Anthurium sent up a new flower, so that's really good. But Splat, the main attraction, is back here in his favourite hiding spot of all, his coconut. You can just sort of see his eye peeping through there. I'll try and get you in for a better shot. Squeezing through the pothos here. You can see him there, completely fired down because he's asleep. But as I say, Splat's doing very, very well. Eating insects sort of once or twice a week, and then getting Arcadia Sticky Foot Gold mixed in with a bit of Repashy and stuff, sort of 2 or 3 times a week as well. Coming into the summer and the spring and stuff, the ambient temperatures in the room do start getting a bit higher, so he sort of kicks into action, wants to eat more, but he is doing really, really well. Anyway, for now that is it for these two, so let's head out into the main reptile room. Going through the main reptile room, we do have Speckles the leopard gecko up there, Red the corn snake down here, and Char the bearded dragon over here, and given that he's out and up and about, I think it's only fair that we start off by looking at Char. Now, as you can tell, Char is being an absolute legend, or has been recently, because he has actually started eating his veg for the first time. He's really enjoying lamb's lettuce. It's like the first thing that he's ever eaten properly, which is just basically really good, because so far he's only been eating insects and stuff, and insects are sort of difficult when that's all they'll eat, because they aren't really supposed to. It's not good for them to just eat those, and also it can get really expensive trying to keep up with the appetites of a little beardy. I am really glad to say that Char does seem to be doing better and better every day now. For a long time I was really worried about him, because, well, when I'm a new owner of a new species, I always sort of panic about them, and it can sort of detract from getting a new reptile, which is sort of why I prefer to just have owned them for a while, rather than get new ones, even though it's exciting, because I always worry about them. But Char does really seem to be thriving, as you can tell. He's doing really, really well. Now, one thing I would like to point out with him is just how tiny he actually is for a beardy. I was just sort of looking through like group posts on Pete Hawkins' Bearded Dragon Network on Facebook, which is a really good source for any information on bearded dragons. But basically, it turns out that Char at 300 grams, pretty much fully grown now, he isn't really doing any growing anymore, is absolutely tiny. I mean, I saw a post recently of an adult beardy that was not fat and was like 6 months younger than Char. That was 760 grams. So that's like 2.5 times his size. So Char really is a little pocket rocket, but whatever the case, he is doing really well. While he's just gone and hid for a bit. On that note, actually, just to interrupt my train of thought, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but whenever it's raining outside, Char always hides, whether he's like afraid of it or he can sense the pressure, and it's like a natural instinct. I'm not sure, but it's definitely something I've noticed. But anyway, I was going to say a rundown on his enclosure. This is a 5 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot bioactive setup. The lighting, it's got a 4 foot long 54 watt 14% dragon lamp by Arcadia T5 that provides his UVB. Then up here we do have a halogen basking spot that's 50 watts and a 250 watt ceramic heat emitter, because this is in an unheated room and it does get quite cold. Now, as I mentioned with the Splat the Crested Gecko, I am sort of planning on doing heating and lighting overhauls, and I am planning on getting a greater wattage halogen, say 100 watts or 150 watts, and then using a deep heat projector as the nighttime heat, because that would be an improvement on what we've got at the minute. Anyway, that is pretty much it for Char, so why don't we take a look at the other reptiles in here? So next up, why don't we take a look at Speckles the Leopard Gecko? Now, it wasn't too long ago that I did this enclosure, and I made a full video on how I set it up, but to give it a brief rundown, it is a Viv Exotic Maxi Medium enclosure, so 3 feet long, 49 centimetres deep, and just shy of 2 feet tall. The lighting in here, I do have a white Python LED kit at the front, which you can't see, then an Arcadia Shade Dweller Pro T5 unit, and also an Arcadia Deep Heat projector. You will recall that I did say when I set up this enclosure that after Speckles had set up shop in this little hide, I think you can just about see him under there. I don't want to bother him too much, but I had said that he was going to stay under there, and he probably wouldn't use any of the other hides for about 6 months because he doesn't like new environments, and that seems to be correct. So far he has just stayed in this hide, but when I have been out here of a night, I have been seeing him up and around. I've seen him right up at the top of that log, and he frequently does bask on here. Now, about that, I have noticed him basking a lot at night. The nighttime shift was only by about 2.5 degrees, and sort of looking at the weather reports of where leopard geckos live in the wild, I don't feel that is a big enough nighttime temperature shift. So I've changed the night temps down to 22.5 degrees at the warmest point. So we'll see if he starts to bask more out on his rock in the daytime, which is more appropriate because he will get the benefit of those UV rays in doing that. But yeah, the only sort of change with this enclosure is that I have stuck a load of damp sphagnum moss. Well, it was damp, but as you can see, it's kind of dried out. But I will keep spraying this. Just for the custodians in this bioactive setup to have a nice place to hide out in. That does only consist of mealworms at the minute, but I do have some breeding colonies of wood lice that are just about starting to take off, and I think I will introduce some into this setup. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've got to say about Speckles in this enclosure, so let's take a look at the last reptile, and then I do want to talk about some future plans. So before we open up this enclosure and I show you Red the corn snake, I do want to talk a little bit about it. Now, just like Char the Beardy's enclosure over here, it is a 5 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure, fully bioactive and live planted, although the live plants in this enclosure are doing a little bit better than the ones that have been crushed by Char over there. But anyway, you will be able to notice that there is a lot of condensation on the glass at the minute, and that is because I have sprayed this enclosure down just like 20 minutes ago, because I do that a couple of times a week, and Red the corn snake does really seem to enjoy it. I spray Speckles down occasionally too, and he likes it as well, and whenever I spray them they sort of come out and become active, so I'm sort of hoping that Red will come from his burrow down there and start slithering around for you to see him during this clip, but either way I will get him out just to show you him. Plenty of people will tell you that any sort of humidity is bad for corn snakes and will give them respiratory infections, but honestly, in a bioactive setup where the bacteria growing are sort of beneficial, provided that the animal is healthy in the first instance, humidity spikes are only really a sort of positive factor. It's only when you're in sterile environments and there's no sort of microfauna cultures developed that you're going to get issues. Apologies for the immense reflections here from the window, but looking at Red's heating and lighting, he has got a 150 watt ceramic heat emitter and also a 7% T8 UVB bulb that's 3 feet long, and I honestly feel that this sort of setup is really quite outdated, just because, I've got deep heat projectors available, but because this is an unheated room, they aren't quite powerful enough to get the sort of hot zone temps high enough. I am struggling to focus here, by the way, just because of that condensation. But anyway, I am thinking of, getting a second sort of heating element in, and maybe having 2 deep heat projectors in here or something. And then as well for the UVB, I am thinking of, when it comes to change it out in a couple of months, getting the 12% bulb just to offer like a bigger range of UVB indexes for red corn snake to choose from. But anyway, I think that's been long enough me talking about him without you seeing him, so I'm going to lift this hide up and try and show you him. So then, let's have a look at Red. You can see a bit more of his setup now, there's not all that condensation. Plenty of darkling beetles on this hide, so I'll just watch out, don't crush any. But let's grab this here and take it off. And there, of course, is Red, looking fantastic. Now, it is a sunny day outside, so I do intend on actually taking him out for a bit of sunshine. But Red is doing absolutely fantastic. Eating stuff like once every 2.5 to 3 weeks at the minute, with a varied diet of chicks, rats and mice, and I am looking to extend that. But Red is doing really, really well in this enclosure. Whenever the lights are sort of near going off or I spray him, he does tend to come out. It's sort of the middle of the day right now, which is probably why he hasn't come out. But anyway, his colours are absolutely popping at the minute. He didn't shed too long ago. But anyway, that is Red, and he is doing really well. I know that he doesn't get that much airtime versus the rest of the reptiles, because honestly, it's just sort of hard to make content on a snake where there's like everything's already been done about them. But I am looking in the future to make more content on him, and if you've got any specific corn snake videos you'd like me to make, then do leave me a message and I'll be sure to do that in the future. Anyway though, that is it for Red, and I do hope that you've enjoyed seeing him. Now, as I said, I do have some future plans to talk about, and you could really help me out with, so let's get on to those. Now, up here, you'll see that there is sort of a 7-foot stretch, that I do have space to put Viveria in, and I am also allowed to do so. So, I do have plans for other inhabitants in the reptile room, apart from these 3. Get this sort of entire unit complete with Vivs, and it should look really good. Now, I am planning to have this done within the next 12 months, hopefully by the end of 2019, so I am really sort of planning what species I want to keep, and that is where you guys could come in. So the decision of what to put in the rest of the reptile room is sort of quite a big one, because in my opinion, I've only really got space for 2 more setups. Here, maybe a 2-foot stack, like 2 1-foot by 1-foot by 1-foot, and then here another 5-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot. Hello, Char. Or if not, then maybe a 4-foot by 2-foot by 2-foot and another enclosure like Speckles. So that does leave me with a lot of options, but I am sort of limited in my choice by the fact that this room is unheated, and in the winter it does become unfeasible to heat it, so whatever I get does need to be able to brumate, as it were. Now, where I'm thinking at the minute is that maybe over this side go for potentially a tortoise, I'm not sure, or another lizard, sort of like Char, and maybe one of the larger lacertids. And then over here, either another ground-dwelling gecko or a smaller species, like one of the smaller types of skink. Of course, what I do put in the reptile room is ultimately going to be up to me, and I don't want to make any decisions based on what somebody on the internet said, but I would like your opinions on what you think would sort of be a good idea for this reptile room, because like it's not set in stone in my mind at all yet what I want to put in here. So if you've got any good suggestions, or if you could like leave what you would like to see in videos in the future, then do leave those suggestions down in the comments and I will be sure to take a look. So anyway guys, I do hope that you really have enjoyed today's video. I do enjoy making reptile room tours because I like giving updates on all the reptiles and how they're doing. And obviously this was sort of an exciting one with the new reptiles. Obviously if you haven't seen them yet, then that is big news. But anyway, that is pretty much it for today, and I will see you in the next video. Over the next coming months, there are obviously lots of exciting things to look out for, because I do have plenty of new things planned for my current reptiles, like with changes to lighting and stuff that I can explain, like the reasoning behind it. And then obviously there is the potential for more new additions, so if you want to see more of that stuff in the future, then do hit subscribe and give this video a like because it does help out a lot. But anyway, from me and Chad, that is it for now, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.